All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So, we all know that Fernando Mendoza is expected to be the first overall pick in April's NFL draft, okay? But will Mendoza be the only quarterback that we see taken in the first round this year? Now, the last time that there was only one quarterback taken in round one of the NFL draft, you've got to go back to 2022 when the Pittsburgh Steelers selected Kenny Pickett. And as we know, that Mendoza is going to be on the first thing smoking, more than likely, to Vegas to be a new member of the Raiders. Will another quarterback who also led his team to the college football playoff and also wears number 15, will he hear his name called in round number one? And of course, I'm talking about Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. And it's really going to be interesting to see where he falls in the draft proceedings. There are some scouts and some draft experts, if you will, who feel that Ty Simpson has first round talent, while there are others who see him going in the second round. It's one of those where, 2025 was the only year that we got to see Ty Simpson as a starter. When he first came to Alabama, he sat behind Bryce Young for a couple of years. And then last year, he sat behind Jalen Milroe. But in Simpson's one true year as a starting quarterback for the Crimson Tide, he was able to complete 64.5% of his passes. He threw 28 touchdown passes and just 5 interceptions. Overall, Ty Simpson was 11-4 as a starter as he helped Alabama reach the SEC championship game. They went 7-1 within the SEC during the regular season, and he also helped them get to the college football playoff quarterfinal as they lost to Indiana. Now, Simpson did not play well coming down the stretch for Alabama. And the evidence of that, you can look at the SEC championship game loss to Georgia, as well as the loss in the college football playoff to Indiana. Remember, Simpson was knocked out of that game early in the second half, but even when Simpson was in there, things did not look promising for the Alabama offense. But with that said, with what we saw from Simpson during the past college football season, is there enough to build off of for his chances in the National Football League? Now, I'll say this. Okay, clearly, like I said, Ty Simpson only had one true year as a starting quarterback in college, and it was a solid year. Okay, and he looked the part under Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer. And one thing I will say about Kalen DeBoer, he knows how to make quarterbacks, because you think about what he did with Michael Penix when they were together briefly at the University of Washington. And of course, Penix went on to become a first round pick by the Atlanta Falcons. It's one of those where I will say this about Ty Simpson. The second half of the season, people are going to lean on that and say he didn't play well. I'll tell you like this: Alabama did not run the football effectively all season long. The Crimson Tide, surprisingly, okay, uncrimson Tide like, were 125th in the nation in rushing. They averaged less than 3.5 yards per carry. And what you saw a lot, especially over the second half of the season, you saw more teams really pinning their ears back defensively, because they had no fear of the run game. And it was a lot of pressure put in the face of Ty Simpson. I'll say this, though. You look at the first game that he had against Georgia back in September when they went to Athens and won that game. He was 24 of 38 passing that night for 276 yards, 2 TDs, and no picks. Of course, in the rematch, you give a guy like Kirby Smart an opportunity to make some adjustments on the defensive side of the football, and they heated up Ty Simpson all afternoon long in the SEC championship game. They were 19 of 39, or he was 19 of 39 rather, for just 212 yards, a TD, and a pick. You go back to the playoff loss to Indiana, 12 of 16 for just 67 yards. And like I said, he got knocked out of that game. Didn't play well against Auburn in the Iron Bowl. And it's one of those because all of these teams that I'm mentioning, they did a solid job of taking away the already porous Alabama running game and trying to make Ty Simpson do it on his own. I will say this, though. You go back and look at the rematch in the playoff with Oklahoma. He took that team into a hostile environment. Alabama was down early in that contest. And Ty Simpson helped to rally that team, made a lot of key throws, made a lot of key plays in that game. And when it was all said and done, he was 18 of 29 passing for 2 TDs and no interceptions. So, with all of that said, does Simpson have the arm and the pocket presence to succeed in the NFL? I think he does. Okay. And I think it's going to come down to him being in the right system because you look at it, he has solid feet. He has, blitz pickup awareness, so to speak. And on top of that, he has moxie. We've seen that. Sometimes he tries to force the football. Okay. And, sometimes quarterbacks get greedy. That's something that you can work on at the next level. But I do think that he does have some solid intangibles that he brings to the table. So, with that said, what are the chances that we see Ty Simpson taken in the first round? I think it's a possibility. I don't think anybody's going to go out there and spend a pick on him in the top 10 per se. Honestly, looking at the teams in the top 10, I think the only team that we could really pencil in that is going to take a quarterback there are the Raiders. It's one of those where the Jets at number two need a quarterback, but it's one of those that would definitely be extremely rich for them to take a quarterback there. The Jets do have the 16th overall pick in this draft. Would they use that pick on Ty Simpson right there? I'm not going to leave it out of the realm of possibilities. I will say this though: if you're Ty Simpson, um, if you're going to have any success in the National Football League, it's not going to come with the Jets because this is an organization, this is a franchise that we have seen for far too long where they have not done a solid job as far as developing quarterbacks. On top of that, let's just say, for the sake of arguments, that the Jets did take Ty Simpson at number 16. It's one of those where you have a head coach in Aaron Glenn who might be coaching for his job in 2026. And if that were to be the case, you'd basically more than likely he'd be throwing Ty Simpson to the Wolves early. I don't think Ty Simpson is ready to come in and be a starting quarterback in the NFL from day one. Not to say that he cannot be an effective quarterback in the National Football League. I just don't think he would be ready from day one. I darn sure don't think he'd be ready for a team like the Jets because we just saw, like I just talked about, Ty Simpson struggled during the second half of the season due to the fact that Alabama struggled running the football. The Jets have a lot of holes in that team on the offensive side. You don't want to put a young quarterback in that situation. And again, like I said, we have seen the Jets' track record for far too long. They ruin quarterbacks. They don't have a clue when it comes to developing guys. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 21. And this could be intriguing because Mike McCarthy is in his first year as a head coach of the Steelers. Mike McCarthy has an offensive track record. We've seen that from his time as the head coach, first in Green Bay and then, of course, in Dallas. I think it'd be interesting to see if we see Aaron Rodgers come back for 2026. And here's why. Clearly, Aaron Rodgers is very familiar with Mike McCarthy. If Aaron Rodgers were to come back for 2026, because he did have a solid 2025, but if he were to come back, I would more than likely think that this would be his last season in the NFL. I think if you have that, and then you have a Ty Simpson, that you bring in as the heir apparent, so to speak, that could possibly be an option there. And another first round team that I'm going to throw out there, the Los Angeles Rams. Like the Jets, the Rams do have a pair of first round picks. They have Atlanta's pick, which is 13th overall. The Rams are not going to take a quarterback there. But Could they possibly look at a Ty Simpson at pick 29, which is their own pick? I think that's a possibility because some people look at Ty Simpson, late first round pick, early second round pick. That would be in that quote unquote slot, if you will. And just like it was with that, how I just mentioned with Aaron Rodgers potentially with the Pittsburgh Steelers, how much longer is Matthew Stafford going to play with the Los Angeles Rams? Not to say that the Rams are ready to push him out the door. There were rumors about him possibly retiring before, but nonetheless, it could be the opportunity for the perfect segue where you would have a guy like Simpson who could sit and learn from a quality quarterback like Matthew Stafford. And on top of that, you would have a scenario where, you have the quarterback whisperer, if you will, in Rams head coach Sean McVay, who has shown a thing or two throughout his time as the head coach of the Rams as far as developing young quarterbacks. The Rams, to me, would be the perfect situation for a guy like Ty Simpson. And aside from him having to sit, the Rams can run the football. Sean McVay works on his offensive line. He also has quality wide receivers for him to get the football to. So it's one of those scenarios where Ty Simpson would not have to come in and be a hero. And just for the sake of argument, let's say you let Ty Simpson sit for a year for 2026 with the Rams. Okay, he can come back and he would be very prepared, I think, to be the starter for the Rams in 2027 or 2028 if they decided to go that way. And one thing I would say as a side note, um, if it were to be a situation, if the Rams were to take a Ty Simpson, I'd love to hear the trash talk in that quarterback room between him and Matt Stafford, a Georgia guy and an Alabama guy. What could go wrong there? So it's one of those where, mentioning the Rams, and like I said, they pick late in round one. If Simpson's still on the board late, would he be enticing for a team? Could we see a team possibly move up or come back into the first round rather to take him? I think a lot's going to be on the board. I think first things first, what we have to see, we know that Ty Simpson is going to throw at the draft. And, there's going to be people who are going to focus on that. He's clearly going to have another opportunity to throw at his pro day with his receivers at Alabama. It's one of those where, what, Ty Simpson can make the throws. And if you give him time, he can be very accurate with the football. So that would definitely work in his favor. It's one of those, would we see Simpson fall into the second round? It's a possibility. I don't, if Simpson is still on the board uh, when round two begins, it's one of those where I don't think he'd have to wait that long to hear his name called. But I think first things first, we're going to have to see how the trade front and free agency work around the NFL with some veteran quarterbacks because we've got a situation where there are more teams that need quarterbacks than there are quality quarterbacks available. Some guys are going to get released, like your Tua from Miami, or Kyler Murray with Arizona. So I want to see how that quarterback shuffle begins first, and then it'll all be about the NFL draft and and who's going to go where. I always say this about quarterbacks: it goes down to fit, and it goes down to system, and it goes down to the team that you go to. Like I said before, Ty Simpson is a guy I think can have success as a starter in the NFL. I just feel like, what? He doesn't need to be in a situation where you're throwing him to the Wolves right away. Okay. And like I said before, a team like the Rams, in my opinion, would be perfect for him. He wouldn't have to start right away. You give him an offensive line, you're giving him a running game, you're giving him quality wide receivers to get the football to. It's similar to the situation he had at Alabama last year, sans the running game. But at the end of the day, there's always going to be a team or teams that reach in round number one to take quarterbacks. And it's one of those where like they feel like they have to take a quarterback. That's why, like I said before, 2022 was one of those anomalies where we only saw one quarterback taken. Usually we see more quarterbacks taken in round number one. And more often than not, it's a reach. And sometimes when you reach, it's not a good fit. So I think the best thing for Ty Simpson is hopefully, because he doesn't have any control over it, but hopefully, he gets into the right fit with the right organization and the right team. But I do feel in the right system and with the right team and the right coaching staff, Ty Simpson can be a quality quarterback at the next level. Some people will want to lean on the second half, on his second half of the season. I'll tell you like this: we saw Ty Simpson in 2025 go to Athens and help Alabama beat Georgia. We saw him go to Norman in the college football playoff, a team that had beaten Alabama earlier in the season. And they rallied from that 17-point deficit to go on and win that game. So, like I said before, he's got the grit, he's got the moxie, he can make the throws. And like I said, in the right situation, I truly do feel he will be able to have success in the NFL. But, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw in this podcast, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out anytime at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, it will be my pleasure to do the same in return. And that also goes for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you're on Facebook, be sure to check out the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports groups going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.